Let's talk about boundaries not as some abstract self-help buzzword, but as the quiet structure of your self-respect. When people don't respect you, the first instinct is often to defend yourself, to make them understand your worth, to explain why their behavior is hurtful or wrong. And I understand it. There's something inside us that believes if we just find the right words, the perfect argument, they'll suddenly wake up and treat us the way we deserve. Respect isn't some bonus you earn after convincing others. It's the baseline. But here's the uncomfortable reality. People rarely begin respecting you because of what you say. They start respecting you because of what you show them you will and will not tolerate. Boundaries are not about building walls to shut people out. They're about creating a framework that protects your values. Think of them like the foundation of a house. Without them, everything eventually collapses. And yet, many of us treat our boundaries like loose suggestions rather than firm rules. We draw a line in the sand, but when someone crosses it, we quietly move the line back because we don't want to seem harsh or difficult. We trade long-term respect for short-term comfort. But every time you allow that line to shift, you're silently teaching the other person that your limits are flexible. The most common mistake people make with boundaries is waiting until they're overwhelmed to set them. By the time you speak up, your frustration is so high that it spills out as an emotional outburst. And when you react that way, the focus shifts to your delivery instead of their behavior. That's why the most effective boundaries are set calmly and consistently before you reach that breaking point. They are not emotional reactions. They are clear decisions. And this is where many people misunderstand the idea. They think setting boundaries means giving a long explanation or a lecture. It doesn't. A boundary is not a speech. It's not you trying to prove you're right. It's a simple statement of what is acceptable, followed by action. If you tell someone, "I'm not comfortable with that," and they continue anyway, your next step isn't to explain yourself again. It's to act. Boundaries without consequences are just empty wishes. And this isn't about punishing anyone. It's about alignment. If someone repeatedly disrespects you, your behavior should reflect the understanding that they cannot be trusted to treat you well. That might mean limiting your interaction, adjusting how you engage with them, or in some cases, removing them from your life entirely. You're not doing it to harm them. You're doing it to protect yourself. That's the difference between reacting and resolving. Reaction focuses on them. Resolution focuses on you. Psychologically, boundaries carry power because they communicate self-worth without you having to say a single word about it. People notice how you treat yourself far more than they listen to what you claim about yourself. If you're constantly bending, over-explaining, and letting things slide, you're not signaling that you're easygoing. You're signaling that you're easy to overlook. And human nature being what it is, people tend to treat you according to the lowest standard you're willing to accept. On a deeper level, boundaries are a kind of moral stance. They say, "This is how I believe people should treat one another, and I refuse to participate in anything less." That's not selfish. It's principled. It's a declaration that dignity is not negotiable. And if someone treats your dignity like an inconvenience, you've just learned something important about who they are. Of course, setting boundaries doesn't guarantee that everyone will respect them. Some people will push back even harder because losing control over you threatens them. They may call you selfish, cold, or ungrateful. They'll try to guilt you into moving that line again. And this is where the real test appears. Are you willing to be misunderstood in order to be respected? Because the truth is, you can chase approval or you can command respect, but you can't do both at the same time. One of the hardest realities of setting boundaries is accepting that it may cost you certain relationships. Some people are only comfortable with you when you're flexible, when you place their comfort above your own. The moment you stop doing that, they may distance themselves. As painful as that can be, it's actually revealing. It shows you which connections were built on genuine respect and which ones depended on your silence. The irony is that people who truly value you will not be threatened by your boundaries. They may not agree with every single one, but they will respect them because they respect you. They understand that limits are a sign of self-awareness, not hostility. Over time, boundaries don't weaken relationships. They strengthen them. They create clarity. They remove confusion. Everyone knows where they stand, and that clarity builds trust. So, how do you set boundaries without feeling like the villain? You separate them from emotion. You don't set them in anger. You set them with clarity. You speak directly and simply. You don't over-justify or over-explain. And when the line is crossed, you respond with action instead of another conversation. You don't need anyone else to agree that your boundary is valid. You only need to decide that it is. In the end, boundaries are not about controlling other people. They're about choosing the role you allow them to play in your life. They are a quiet but firm statement that says, I know my worth and I will protect it. And once you live by that consistently, something shifts. People either rise to meet your standard or they step away. Either way, your life becomes lighter, calmer, and more aligned with the respect you deserve. The real question is whether you will draw the line and hold it, or keep redrawing it until nothing remains to protect. Because the moment you decide, the way people treat you begins to change. And if we're honest, most of the pain we feel when someone disrespects us doesn't come from their behavior itself. It comes from the meaning we attach to it. When someone rolls their eyes, interrupts you, dismisses your opinion, or speaks down to you, your mind immediately starts translating. They think I'm not good enough. They think I'm weak. They think I don't matter. And suddenly you're no longer responding to what happened. You're reacting to the story in your head. The problem is, once you allow their behavior to define your worth, you've handed over control of your emotional state. You've given them the remote to your mood. And the harsh truth is, some people will use that remote as often as they can. Not because they're constantly thinking about you, but because they've learned it works. The more reactive you are, the easier it becomes to influence you. Detachment is not about becoming cold or indifferent. It's not about pretending you don't care when you actually do. It's about separating their behavior from your identity. Their disrespect reflects their values, their upbringing, their emotional maturity, not yours. If someone throws mud at you, it doesn't mean you are made of mud. But if you pick it up, spread it on yourself, and carry it around all day, that becomes your choice. Psychologically, detachment is a form of self-protection. It creates a space between what happens and how you respond. And in that space, you gain control. Without detachment, you operate on autopilot. Someone disrespects you, and you instantly react, either by snapping back, withdrawing, or spiraling into self-doubt. With detachment, you pause, you observe, you decide whether it's worth your energy, and often it isn't. Think about it. If you needed every person to like you, agree with you, and treat you perfectly in order to feel secure, your life would become an endless chase. But the moment you realize you can remain steady even when others disapprove, something shifts. You stop living for external validation. You stop bending to every changing mood around you. You begin to live from your own center. Philosophically, this idea is rooted in a simple truth. You cannot control the minds of others, only your own. The Stoics understood this deeply. They believed that suffering doesn't come from events themselves, but from the interpretations we attach to them. And when you start to see that clearly, you gain a kind of freedom that most people spend their entire lives searching for. When someone disrespects you, your mind tends to label it as a direct attack on your worth. Detachment says, no, this isn't about me, it's about them. And I get to choose how much space this occupies in my thoughts. Now here's where people often misinterpret detachment. They assume it means you stop standing up for yourself. That's not true at all. Detachment doesn't mean you ignore disrespect. It means you address it from a place of steadiness, not emotional chaos. You can call someone out. You can step away. You can enforce a boundary, but you do it without letting them drag you into emotional quicksand. It's the difference between a firefighter calmly handling a blaze and someone panicking with a bucket, throwing water everywhere but solving nothing. One approach restores control, the other only spreads the chaos. Detachment also removes the hooks that keep unhealthy dynamics alive. Disrespectful people often thrive on reactions. It gives them a sense of influence. The more you feed that cycle, the more they repeat the behavior. But when you respond with calm clarity, when you don't react to the bait, the entire dynamic begins to change. They lose their leverage because they're no longer getting the response they were expecting. And let's be honest, this isn't something you master instantly. The first few times